Week 8, recovering a sense of strength. So this chapter I found very informative, and for me personally, there was so much information in there for me. So I'm still trying to keep it short because there was so much to untangle. And I think this chapter has been the chapter I've been waiting for me personally, because it really talks about, firstly, how do you survive the loss of your of your hope, the loss of your art, basically the survival of the artistic loss and how to overcome that. Because if we stay stuck in the loss, we will probably keep ourselves, we will block ourselves, our artist self, from exploring other things. And that has been very true for me. Now, with this book, I feel like I've tried out new things, and I'm trying out new things a lot about has to do with writing, which is really exciting, but also because I don't think I have fully gone through the kind of grief of other artistic journeys that I tried and that didn't work out. Now, when I'm doing the writing, I do catch myself feeling, well, why am I writing even if it doesn't go anywhere, right? And that's, you shouldn't think about that. That is poison, which is something she also mentions later. One of the first steps that you should do is to share your loss. And it's easier to grieve, it's easier to go through those stages of grief when you share that kind of journey. And most of us artists don't do that because we create the art by ourselves and then it doesn't go anywhere, so we don't even share it with people, that are close to us, or friends or family members. And maybe there's even shame around that we tried something, that we really created something and it wasn't successful, and that can be, maybe shameful, and therefore we don't share it. But sharing it is an important step in the recovery process. Then she talks about ivory power, and there's one sentence that really stuck with me, and that is, in order to recover our sense of hope and the courage to create, we must acknowledge and mourn the scars that are blocking us, which again talks about you need to go through that process, through that painful process, in order not to keep yourself from discovering new things. Following up, she mentions the importance of gain disguised as loss. And here she writes, "Know, to trust and to act as if a silver lining exists. If you are only willing to look at the work differently, or to walk through a different door, one that you may have balked at." So finding the silver lining in everything and understanding that something comes out of that loss, and this gain will help you on your future journey. Moving on to the old timer, I'm told for that, where I think the biggest answer is really, well, even if you think you're told for that, and once you've achieved it in a couple of years, you'll be way too old, well, the time will pass anyway, so you might as well try. She wrote something here which I found incredibly beautiful. She says, "Creativity occurs in the moment, and in the moment, we are timeless." So it doesn't really affect the outcome, the age we are. If it's meant to be, if you put the work in, if you put yourself into that piece of art, it is timeless, and you are timeless. I think that's what she's trying to say with that quote. And then she goes on to say, "Focused on process, our creative life retains a sense of adventure. Focused on product, the same creative life can feel foolish and barren." So, focusing, of course, on the process. We've talked about this before. She has talked about this before. And I think this is really important, but this is something where I hope I will get more answers later on in the book, because I believe one of the main reasons why we might focus on the end product is because we hope that our art might turn into some form of income for us. So of course we need to have the finished piece of art that will give us income so we can pay our bills, right? And so how do you tackle that? And that is a question that came up while reading this. But I also had another thought because it reminded me of a lyrics from Eminem where I think he says, "If only one kid feels and relates, that's great." And I think that kind of quote just speaks to, if I create something, I want to create something. Of course, I want to have an end product in a way, but taking the pressure off that 100, 1,000, million people need to love it, and maybe focusing on something smaller, just being like, well, if only one person likes it, that's okay, or if it helps one person. And I think that helps it for me to narrow it down. It doesn't fully go into just enjoying the process and not focusing on the product at all, but I think it's a step closer to that. And sometimes, we need to make steps in between, because of course you understand what I said on the page, it makes sense, but then to really make that shift internally, that can take a time, and you might need to take steps in between. And now that we are talking about steps, she writes in the next bit, filling the form, and it's all about taking small steps, not looking at the big mountain and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get there? Running to the cliff and then realizing, well, I can't jump, I can't fly. And maybe just taking one step, and every day taking one small step, one tiny bit. Because if we focus too much on what are the odds, that can really bring us discomfort and pain, and there's a poison we basically take ourselves. She says, make sure you work with what you've got and not with, think about what you wish you had, because that way you'll just be thinking about it, and you are where you are, so that's where you need to start, and that is where you will start. But even small steps over time can lead you onto a different path. And here she gave a really great example, which I loved, and that is about space travel. If you change the launch trajectory just a tiny bit, just a couple of centimeters in the beginning, which isn't much, but of course, once the rocket goes into space, that will have big impact. So, because with the time and with the distance, that will make that kind of difference. So, not underestimating the small steps you can take every single day. And following that, other tasks. I took actually 2 weeks to do this chapter because I was traveling. So I was like, I've done, I need to do, and I want to do other things. So it took me kind of 2 weeks. I did 2 exercises and started a third one, which was all about really thinking about your goal and everything connected to that. And I realized, well, reading this book, I definitely have changed some of my wishes and my beliefs so far. So I still need to really think about what my goal is. So I want to come back to that exercise because it's a useful one. It's a really great one. I went on 2 artist dates. One artist date actually didn't feel like it, or wasn't meant to be an artist date. It was listening to an audiobook. And I thought, I'm just doing that for myself, and didn't feel productive in any way, or, in any way artistic. But by listening to that story, I felt it really enriched my inner life, and I've become really obsessed with that book series, and I love it. But it inspired me and helped me with my writing. So I love that. That's something I feel, I'm just, spending time reading or listening, that can still be hugely fulfilling and can be helpful in my artist journey. And then the morning pages, I did them every day, but 2 days in those 2 weeks. And again, I find them really, really good. I find them really helpful. And even on mornings where I'm not feeling like I have anything that I need to get out, I always get something in the end. So yeah, I'm hands down, the morning pages are one of the most incredible tools I've tried so far, and have been the most useful thing, one of the most useful things from this book so far. And with that, let's pick a card. Friendship and Union. This card, Friendship and Union, is about that now is a great time for you to connect with the people around you and with your friends. And if you feel like maybe some of the friends are fading away or you're struggling to make friends, understand that it is about the energy you put out, about who you are, and that will maybe bring different and new people into your life, and that right now connection might be really useful for yourself. Next week, week 9, I'm back with Recovering a Sense of Compassion.